All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. I always am here with Alexa Dunn. I like to give it a few seconds because it always takes a little while for YouTube to catch up.
Well, and
Okay,
if
cool.
people turn on reminders, they won't get one for 20 minutes because that's what YouTube likes to do.
That's great. Awesome.
Because every time I set a reminder, 20 minutes in, it's like, this is live.
It's like, oh, by the way. Yes. Okay, so we're up. Yes, it's happening. It's time. We have a lot of people here. Hello. How is everybody tonight? So I'm very excited to have Alexa here on my channel to celebrate the Ivies, which I haven't gotten my copy yet. I'm supposed to in theory, but maybe you have one. I don't know.
I do. Hold on. I have to reach around the cat who has appeared to my side that you can't see.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yay.
Just want to touch it.
So exciting. Out this week. Tomorrow officially.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
So weird. Though, I mean, as always, select Barnes & Nobles have 100% shelved it a week early.
Of course they have, yeah.
Fun facts, this is actually pretty common. I stopped freaking out about it as an author a long time ago, but every once in a while you see someone going, oh no, and I'm like, when the bookstores receive it, they will put it on the shelves. So,
I mean, somebody's going to be very excited to get an early copy, so,
right?
Yeah.
Well, and when you do the pre-order, some of them ship them really early anyway, so.
That's true, yeah. All right, we've got a lot of people here tonight. Hello, everybody. Wow. Hi.
Really? Cool.
Yeah, we've got like a decent number of people, so hopefully more will come. Hello. We had a lot of people waiting before we even got on here. Yes, cool. It's beautiful. Can't wait. Awesome. Hi, everybody. Okay, so here is kind of the game plan. I'm going to ask Alexa some questions. We're going to chat a little bit about the Ivies and then see where it takes us. And then at some point, if people in the comments have questions they want to ask, we can maybe field some of those as well. Yeah. It would be fun to do a live, which I love that you're doing a booktube tour for the book. It's very exciting.
I was so thrilled when my publisher said that to me because I hadn't heard of that being a thing. Yeah. And I was so glad it was an option. And so this is it's a blog and a YouTube tour, and then separately they're running an Instagram thing. And I'm like,
I love it.
And I'm told they have sent my book to TikTokers because that is the new promised land.
I know. It's like
I loved your TikTok. Thank you.
Thank you.
Made me feel like a movie star.
It was fun with my tiny TikTok platform, but it's growing slowly. We'll get there. It's fun.
I was just so impressed with your editing skills. I'm not there. I can't quite figure it out, and I just haven't had the mental bandwidth to go hard.
That's
I have
fair.
A list of ideas. I have ideas for clever TikToks.
I have it if I get the energy to do it, I've been thinking about doing kind of like a how-to book talk video for YouTube at some point.
You should. Because when I joined it, finally, I literally just I searched, how do I make a TikTok? So you could make that for a book talk and you probably get some hit results. But literally watched a woman show me how to TikTok. Yeah. She just went through the editor. She it was pretty cool. I was like, I need this. Thank you.
That's a good idea. Okay. Guys, I may do this at some point.
And book talk has some very specific conventions, so that makes sense. The throwing the book thing eludes me. I'm like, always worried I'm going to hit myself in the face.
I haven't figured that out yet, but I do. It is really fun doing the transitions with flipping the pages. You just have to edit the clips so that it looks like it's like magic. It's cool. It's fun. Nice. I like it. Sorry I didn't get that up earlier. Okay, so we have somebody else part of the booktube tour. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yay. Cool. Yeah, congrats. So maybe a good place to start with this is why don't you kind of pitch to everybody what is the Ivies? Yeah. Why should they read it? They should. It's great. It's a fun book.
Thank you. So the Ivies is a YA boarding school thriller, and it's basically Mean Girls meets competitive college admissions and murder.
Yeah.
Ooh. Mean Girls with like a sprinkle of Heathers. Though the thing is, I was actually really influenced by Jawbreaker, but that was influenced by Heathers, which is kind of funny. People assume I'm a huge Heathers fan, but I'm really more like, showing my age. Grew up on Jawbreaker. But it's basically an elite boarding school, and this group of girls who call themselves the Ivies, because, very tongue-in-cheek, because they're going to go to the Ivy League come hell or high water. And they each have a school that they are allowed to apply to, according to Avery, the queen bee. Because part of what this book goes into, because this is true, I filled this with fun facts about elite college admissions that people might not know. Schools have quotas. They will only take so many students from a given senior class from a high school. Like some high schools, small high schools, if they take anyone, like they might take 0 in a given year, they will only take 1. At a school like Claflin Academy, which I modeled on comparable real Northeastern boarding schools, they might take 2 or 3, which is a lot. The school that I looked at is Exeter. This is a long pitch, by the way.
Okay.
29% of the graduating class of Exeter on average goes to the Ivy League, which is kind of insane when you think there are 8 Ivy Leagues, and Exeter has like a decent sized student body. So basically a third of the seniors go to Ivy Leagues, which is pretty outrageous.
That's wild.
But that still means pretty fierce competition. If your graduating class has 50, 60, 70, 80 people, I think I did like 100 to 120 people per class. I actually wrote it down somewhere. My copy editor at one point was like, how big is the school? And I was like, well, I planned this. One of the few things I planned. But rambling. This is what live streams are for.
That's okay.
I feel like if people are here and if they don't know me, now they'll know what my YouTube channel is like. Yeah. I don't do short. I
love it. It's great.
Basically, these friends are each other's competition if they were to apply to the same schools. And so Avery is like, I've gathered you all. I've chosen you as my friends because we each have different interests and strengths, and we will apply to 5 different Ivies, and we will basically sabotage our classmates on each other's behalf in order to increase our odds of getting those spots. So they've spent the last 2.5 years, because they're seniors now, just some subtle sabotage, and as my main character Olivia comes to find, some major sabotage. They've basically schemed their way to the top, and it starts on early decision day, which is December 15th. And someone gets into Harvard who is not supposed to get into Harvard because she wasn't supposed to apply to Harvard, and Avery does not get in. Triple legacy too. And people have questioned that, and I'm like, it's so because I say so because I'm an author. And then that girl turns up dead. She's murdered, and the main character Olivia goes, may I curse on your live stream? How are we feeling?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. She goes, oh shit, because Olivia has a secret too. She also secretly applied to Harvard against Avery's orders and got in. And so if Avery murdered Emma, she's gonna murder Olivia next. So not only that, but all of them are suspects. So the police are investigating this murder, and Olivia is investigating her friends.
It's so juicy. I mean, this book is so juicy, and I love it. And it does not skimp on like the twist, and which I really appreciate. And I want to ask you a little bit about this actually, because a thing that I've noticed, right? Like a lot of times, not always, but frequently in YA thrillers, you'll have like a couple of twists, which is fine, but like the twists, like you have a lot.
I do.
No, but I love it. It's so good. And it's fun. It was really fun to read it because I had in my head, like, okay, I think this is what's going on. And I had like a tiny piece of it, right? But most of it, I was like, what? This is not what I thought was happening. Which is fun for reading experience.
I like lots of twists, and I also like subverting expectations, but also my favorite thrillers, period, adult or YA, I like them to have a little bit of gritty pathos. And a lot of that comes from layering on your twists and things not being what they seem. Or mostly, I just love when people have really messed up motives. Like, I like plumbing the depths of humanity. And so that's what I was, my aim here is that even if you guess who did it, and some people do, and if you're a seasoned thriller reader, that's fine. I want people to be mildly shocked by the motive.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is there's so many moving pieces. So like, it's not just twists about the actual murder. There are other things and revelations. It's great.
And if we want to talk process, a lot of that's down to my editor. I wrote it one way. The first draft was full on unlikable protagonist. Olivia was very they did horrible things and she participated in it and was aware. And so a lot of the tension was driven by, oh, we're bad people, so someone will probably want to kill me too, was kind of that. And then my editor was like, well, what if instead there was extra twists in her discovering how awful her friends are? And so that became like the new art, because there's this extra layer of like the victim had a lot of secrets. Other people that Olivia is close to were doing some really messed up things behind the scenes. And so, and there's one that maybe you're thinking of that I don't want to spoil, but it's one of my favorite twists in the book, because, you know, people nag me for being a pantser, but I literally came up with that twist when I was writing the scene, and it's one of the best ones in the book. And I'm like, sometimes.
Okay, after this, you're gonna have
it just comes to you, and you're like, I've had people say that like it's the twist that really upset them. So I'm like, all right, yeah.
That's so interesting, because I was curious about that, like how you do that, of how much of this is planned out ahead of time and how much of it is kind of like in the moment. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of it. So the main twist of the book, pre-planned. Like pre-planned to the point I didn't even know who the killer was. I just knew why the victim turns up dead. I knew like the layers of the motive, if that makes sense. Like, and like the personal like shit that had gone down between people.
Yeah.
And then I worked back from that, but then there were, it's so hard to talk without talking spoilers. Then there were other things though that I didn't know that like kind of came to me. And I had like a list of like tropes and things I could do. And so like, it would be like picking and choosing the ones I decided to go for when I was writing. So like, thing I can't specifically say, but connect to the federal scandal was on my list and was on my outline. And I almost talked myself out of writing it because it was going to be hard. And then I wrote it because I was like, oh, there's literally a federal scandal where a bunch of celebrities. Okay. Yeah. This is going in the book.
Yeah. Which is also on my list of things to talk about, because it's so interesting. Like, it was
the universe giving me a gift.
I mean, man.
I was already writing the book, and I already was like, this is a pretty fun thriller hook. And then that happened, and I was like, well, now it's relevant. So timing is everything. Yeah.
It's definitely interesting. Okay, so like there's so many places we could go with this.
It's just so hard, like not talking about spoilers.
It is. I know. Okay. So one thing that I think is interesting that some people I know have talked about is you mentioned COVID in the book, which I feel like is like a controversial thing in publishing these days. But I'd be interested to hear kind of your take on it. I don't necessarily have a problem with it, and I feel like we're probably going to get more books that are going to be dealing with it as time goes on.
Absolutely.
But people have very strong feelings about this.
Me too. And I understand. I totally understand. Yeah. I'm not the person at this juncture who's reaching for a pandemic book myself. It's not the top of the list. It was basically the book has a timeline. Like the book is set in the real world on a real timeline, and there are mentions of real things in it that in a normal situation wouldn't matter, but like there was a reference, and I was at this point in editing the book. So when COVID hit, I got my edits on February 15th, and I got an extension around like March 10th. And then on March 15th, it was like, stay at home. And then where are we now? And so by April, I had a conversation with my editor. I was like, I hit the middle. I was like, there's an SAT test date that I mentioned that someone retook the SAT 3 times. Might have been Olivia. Because, I still gave her a better SAT score than I had. I also had to retake my SATs. I have feelings about the SATs. I hate them. But I was like, this test date no longer exists. It was canceled. It didn't happen. So this is now like a factual error. What do I do? And I decided, with very idealistic ideas, I don't think could any of us have fathomed how poorly the United States would handle the pandemic. Yeah. No. We were still under the delusion in like April, May 2020 that we would be at work in September. Delusions.
Yeah.
Oh, hell! It's a Helshin times.
Little did we know.
Little did we know. And so I wrote COVID into the book as if the second semester junior year for these characters had happened as it was happening at the time that I was editing the book. But I, bright-eyed and hopeful, send them to school in the fall. Because in fairness, I have to. The story can't happen if they're not at work at school.
I mean, yeah.
Like hindsight is 2020. And so just for people to know, like, once you put your book to bed, which for me was last summer, you cannot make real changes to it. It was too late. By the time I made the choice was made. Yeah. Unfortunately. I couldn't make things because any changes would have created ripples, continuity errors, messed up my timeline, and my copy editor would have flown to California to murder me had I tried. Or I would have been bummed. Yeah. I would have missed my publication date. And I was like, sorry, COVID, you're not taking anything else from me.
Written another murder mystery about
it. But so like, if you go in and read it, there are references to it, and then just pretend it's not set in 2020. Like you can in your brain, if you so choose, be like, this is the 2021 school year, and just ignore the part where it says Harvard class of 2025. That's all. The dates are very rarely mentioned, but sometimes they are. Basically,
I think that's fair. Yes,
but yeah, I unfortunately do not have a time machine, nor am I psychic, and so it is inaccurate in some ways. But hey, I also say pretend that these incredibly rich people decided to form a bubble at their school fall of 2020, and in fairness, a lot of colleges did that.
I mean,
including my alma mater.
And this seems like a school that would do it legitimately.
I feel like they would.
So.
I feel like Claflin would. They'd be like, we're like too good for this. Like, we're fine. We have money.
Well, and you know, I'm not going to go into details, but you have a party scene, and I also think it's funny because there are totally also rich people who were still having parties like that. And I mean, then people got COVID, but
yeah. Oh, party scenes, like God, they hit different. They really hit different.
They really do.
Oh no. Oh gosh. And you know what? In however many years, maybe no one will care.
It'll be fine. Things are getting better.
It was weird. And I'll tell you, editing a book is different from writing a book because I'm writing a book right now. And writing in this time is really hard. Like getting your brain to focus long enough to be creative. I prefer editing. I'm actually still drafting. Still.
You can do it.
I can do it.
You can do it.
I know. I wrote the scene where I handle my killer last night, so the end is in sight.
Love it.
Handle. I actually haven't decided what's going to happen to them. They're either dead or they're not. We'll find out.
Like Schrodinger's cat.
No, it is. I honestly am gonna like let my editor decide. Like, your choice. Does this person make it?
Well, it sounds like you have a great editor. That's good. How has that been? Because you've transitioned. This is a different publisher, a different editor. What has that been like for you?
Every new editor, new publisher is a little different. And so this is my third editor, my second publisher. But like, honestly, you can tell like Random House like doesn't come to play. Like it's like, and this is no shade to my previous publisher, which is a fantastic publisher, but it's smaller. Yeah. It's just way smaller. Like I can definitely tell there's fewer people there. So just like the number of people who have touched this book is bonkers to me. Like 8 or 9 people at least, like just between copy edits and past pages. Like I couldn't even tell who was putting the comments, but like it reassures you because you're like, wow, 1 million people read this. So if there's a mistake, like we can blame everyone.
Yeah, it's not on you.
It feels like you have a parachute on, or a safety net, and just also. So my it's just a different experience as well, because my first book, my acquiring editor left shortly after she acquired me, and we did dev edits. And so I've never gone through like an entire publication experience with my acquiring editor from start to finish, because my second book I was inherited, like I was given to an editor. So it's just been really nice, like going from start to finish, like knowing like she picked it out of the submission pile. She believed in it enough to want to pay me for it and work with me on it, which is so weird. We went through a lot on edits, like just because like thrillers are hard, and just rewriting that entire arc with Olivia and the Ivies, it was a ton of work. She always had really good suggestions. She, especially as now we're going into another book, because she bought another book for me. She believes in me. It's very strange, but that's the thing.
I love it.
When I'm freaking out and I'm like, I don't know how to write books, she's just so encouraging. It's nice. That's how it should be, obviously.
That's how it should be. I mean, that's great. Yeah.
Because authors and imposter syndrome, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
You think I can write books? Okay.
But
yeah.
but I mean, you can. I think this, I mean, I've enjoyed all of your books, but like, I think this is the best book you've written so far.
I think so too.
It's so much fun too.
Found like, I always knew I had like a kind of snarky, sarcastic voice, but it really fits in thrillers in a way that it didn't. Not that it didn't in my other work. My other works is different. They're totally different genres.
Yeah.
I like cheesy romance too, but like I get to like really go hard on thrillers, and I like soapy writing, and I like twisty writing, and I like cliffhangers. So it just it suits all of that. And the new one's even more bonkers. I know that that's like a tease, you know, but it's I really challenged myself, and like I maybe made a mistake. It's really complicated, this next one. Way more complicated than the Ivies.
I'm excited for it. I think it'll be fun. Well, and that's the thing is like, you definitely do have this really soapy vibe to all your books, which is fun. It makes them like a fun, relaxing, escapist read. It's good for like, it's like a beach read.
They're beach reads.
They're beach reads.
That's basically what I write. I write the book that I really hope you read on a plane, because they're the kind of books I like to read on planes, where it's like, where you want 6 hours to go by without you stressing that you're in a tin can. So you get a page turner that, you know, like you're just going to be so engrossed. That's what I hope to be. Yeah. Not trying to win a Pulitzer. So
yeah. I mean, you know what? Like, we need all kinds of books, and I think your books they're really fun.
Well, especially like that's all I read nowadays, because it's just life's hard. I just want to read about ridiculous people killing. I guess that sounds so dark.
Why not? People are like very excited for the new one. It's okay. Okay. Now I will say this though, is for like, as much as you have a lot of like soapy things in your books, you do have threaded in some more substantive topics, which I like.
Back to my editor. One of the things she said to me on the phone call before she offered, and I was like, seriously? She said she thought the book was important, and I was like, excuse me? So well, because it is satirical, and it's got an edge, and it's meant to be ridiculous, but a lot of the book is actually real. And I'm definitely trying to say something. I hope it comes across, because I am worried, because if you take it at face value, someone might think it's like, oh, great, rich people are fantastic, and it's so wonderful that they can do anything they want and go to the best universities in the country. Well, I'm glad, but I worry sometimes. I'm like, was it clear that I hate this? I not hate it, because you can't help it if you're rich and fantastic. You can't. But the system is rigged, and the system is unfair, and I hate that. I generally hate all this pressure that's put on teenagers. I didn't even go into it in the book. Like, it's kind of there by default of Olivia being a lower middle class student, but like the cost of college is unacceptable. It's absolutely gross. But just like the pressure that we put on ourselves and on our kids and whatnot, just like elitist games and prestige, it's all bullshit, except when it's not. Because the sad thing is that I do kind of acknowledge is no school is a golden ticket, But it is actually true that if you can go to certain places, you get access to like networks and resources. And what is so unfair is that it's easier to get there if you already have all those things.
Yeah. I do think the book is interesting because it addresses some stuff related to it, because you talk a little bit about like people's misconceptions about things like affirmative action.
And I didn't even go that hard on that.
No, you barely. It's like barely.
I had to be careful because I was like, I could, but I'm almost not quite the right person to write that book. Yeah. Someone should, but the things I've seen, and so the things that are in the book related to that topic are almost quotes that I have seen people say. And I can go into it here. I didn't go because again, I was like, at what point does this book turn into a YouTube video where I tell people all about all the ups and downs of college admissions? There's a concept called, so they now kind of term it more as overrepresented minorities and underrepresented minorities. And the ideal aim in a balanced class or a more balanced class where we're making up for systemic and historical inequities is that you look to boost and the wording, it's because what is a really bad misconception, and it's where people get very, very racist, like seriously the things they say, no one's given a free pass. No one, like, and what is so frustrating, it's like the people, anyone who gets into XYZ school has earned their place there as much as any other person there.
Yeah.
But underrepresented minorities, which are historically underrepresented in higher education, they're separated out into a different pool. Like it's a good thing. And and what I actually kept out of the book is that it's not just white people who are incredibly racist about college admissions. And the things I've seen people lie about their race, trying to game the system. I didn't put that in the book. It's interesting. The ethical lines people will push because they've decided that they deserve something. And then we have rich people who spend $500,000 to pretend to row to get into a school. Like it's all entitlement. It's like,
it's wild. Well, I mean, like, again, like it's not a huge thing, but I feel like you see it in there, which I appreciated. And I do hope somebody writes that book.
I do
like
too.
Really about that, because they should.
Because like I gave Sierra like her moment. I was like, because and then in other places in the book as well. But I was like, this is as much as I like. This is so people are aware that I am aware.
Yeah,
and that they know.
You have a couple of really good like pointed lines in there that I appreciated.
No, people say it generally. They'll be like, so and so took my spot, for whatever the context is of why they feel someone took their spot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
legacy took my spot. I mean, was that your spot? Yeah. But also, yes, the legacy did get in. Of course they did. Yeah. They can pay full freight in cash. Cheers. It's not fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is now a college admissions stream.
That's okay. I have more questions about college. Well, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk about that I think is interesting is inspiration. Because I know from watching your channel, right, that some of this is coming from your background with work that you've done. So maybe if not everybody knows about that, if you want to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah. Essential context. You're like, wow, why did she just go off about, racism in college admissions privilege? I basically, it's a thing I'm passionate about and I've always been really interested in because I'm someone who came from a lower middle class background and going to an elite school. Though it's hilarious. We can talk about rankings. Like BU is technically not even that elite and it's more elite now than it used to be. I mean, I love it. I went to school on a scholarship and it's the only way I would have ever gone to a private college. And a lot of the stuff that bleeds into the Ivies is from that personal life experience. Obviously a little different at the college level than at the high school level, but like feeling like an outsider in the echelons of privilege. Like
Mm-hmm.
I went to school with kids whose parents run movie studios and international conglomerates like Xerox, and one of the Olsen twins dated someone who went to my school. And you hear about like they live in fancy off-campus apartments, and there's a lot of like, anyway, I was able to use that. But it changed my life. Like I have had opportunities because I got a great education.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm passionate about helping people, especially those with less access to college and resources, first generation, lower income, etc., get into school. Because what happens so often is the people don't even know that there are opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the system is rigged, and yes, it's not mostly, but like a lot of these really expensive schools are full of people with a lot of money, but not across the board. There are actually, schools are always looking for high achieving,
Mm-hmm.
talented individuals who are from different backgrounds. Like college is actually, like, they're not lying. They want to have a diverse class. What does a diverse
Mm-hmm.
class mean? It actually means a lot of things. Socioeconomic diversity, regional diversity, racial diversity, yes. And then there are categories that like they can't legally like ask you about, but they do look to have a class that has like a lot of different people and a lot of balance. But they can actually look at, where are you from? How much money do your parents make? What breadth of experiences are you bringing to school? So I have been working with students pro bono since 2014 through a nonprofit in Los Angeles. And it's a writing organization, and that's how I got into it. But every single fall, we do a series of workshops with the seniors, and we're assigned one-on-one to kids. And we basically take them through the entire college admissions process. We help them with everything. Their list, financial aid, writing their essays, submitting their applications. And I've just had these amazing experiences. And so a lot of the stuff in the book, the reason Sierra goes to Yale is I helped a girl go to Yale. So I know what that admissions process is like. Same thing with Harvard. I actually, Amanda Gorman, who is now famous, which is very strange. And I knew when she was 16, she was probably going to be famous, but it still blows my mind. I helped, like, barely. She was so talented, I didn't have to do anything, but I read over her essays and they were actually perfect. One of them made me cry. But like, she's a student that I worked with, and she went to Harvard. It's so bonkers. There's a student I helped get a full ride to Smith. She had been homeless when she was younger. And like, so she was someone coming from really low income. And like, I love that kind of thing where I'm like, why don't you apply to this liberal arts college in Massachusetts? And they will throw money at you. And she just graduated and she's going to like go change the world. And I love these kids. I call them my kids. They're not kids. They're like in their 20s now. But I love doing this. Another girl that I helped, and it's shake and bake. I just help. Like, they're already incredible. I just help. She just graduated from Berkeley, and she's working for the local NPR station in Los Angeles. And I'm like, this is so cool. These kids change the world. I love them. And so I've been doing that. But part of that, I go hard at things. And if you watch my YouTube channel, you can tell that I go hard at things. And so, for 3 or 4 years, I was on College Confidential all the time. Applying to college is a subreddit. So if anyone is applying to college, it's r/applying to college. I haunted that one for many years. I still like read it, but I responded. I helped students. I would let them DM me and I would go over their essays. So like, they're random kids. I don't know who they are. Like, there's one kid I helped get into Rice. I don't even know who this kid is, but I helped him get into Rice. There was another girl who was rejected ED to Stanford, I think. No, Princeton. And I helped her get into Stanford. And it's just like, wow. And like, I've helped all these kids.
I'm gonna need all of your help in like 10 years when like I'm dealing with my children.
I offer to help people all the time. My ophthalmologist just got new glasses. His daughter will be applying next year. And I was like, here's my card. I will help her. Why not? I've helped family members, like cousins. Because it's basically, it's strategic. It's strategic. And it's marketing. Sadly, and I know this is why it's overwhelming, a college application is marketing. You are packaging yourself as a brand. It's insane. But outsiders, like professionals who understand the system, can help you. And so I do that. And I did it for 2 years in private consulting, like paid. And that was so much work. And I had to stop doing it because I got a book deal. And I literally couldn't have 4 jobs. I'm down to 3.
Oh, slightly excessive.
4. 5 if you count the pro bono stuff, but I was way too much work. But so I've like tasted that. And that was actually just essays when I did it paid. And so I mentioned in the book, there's a whole cottage industry of paid professionals who can charge $20,000 or more for their services. It is lucrative. There's literally one, it has Ivy in the title, and they guarantee that if you pay them, and it's a lot of money, that your child will get into the top school of their choice, whatever that is. They yeah. And so kids who already have a lot of money, well, and that's the fascinating thing about the federal scandal. That company is like those other companies, except they were breaking the law. Most of them don't break the law. They just help the students. Although I have a lot of questions. There are probably ethical lines crossed at some companies at certain levels, and that is not something I am ever ethically okay engaging in.
Fair,
I don't know if I would make it at the upper echelons because I'm not going to write your essay for you, rich person.
Which I love that you have the consultant in the book.
Yeah.
As well.
She is based on, I mean, she's got a little bit of me in there. Some of her jokes are my jokes. And actually, so I have her joke about a bad college essay, and my editor made me change the original joke because she thought it was too mean. And I'm like, this is what but like, they're like, if you get people who work in this industry together, like we make these jokes, and not just people who help. Like I love listening to admissions officers talk about like what it's like for them. And that's when you hear they will morbidly joke about like, got another grief essay. Like, don't write about COVID, kids. Like, unless you have something real to write about, don't write about how you were like, this was actually the tenor of the joke that she was like, don't do that. It's so mean. Don't write your essay because you're sad that you missed the championship game because of a global pandemic where people died, Kim. And here's the thing, you need a consultant like me I would never be snarky to a child. By the way, if you were watching this and you're a child, I love you and you're great, but you're a teenager and your feelings are big. And you might callously write something that an adult reading it is going to go, I don't want you at my school because, boundaries. And it's my job to say, I really see what you're going for here, but what if we wrote about, your talent for Minecraft or whatever it is? Like, you have things that are more interesting about you than you think.
Well, I mean, I think about, my children who will like scream and cry because their snack fell on the ground. So like, when you're young, like your brain is developing, you have very big feelings.
Yeah, and it's sometimes it's so well-meaning too. It's I've actually helped. Any topic can theoretically be done, even if you shouldn't. And I have helped people successfully write about, for example, service trips, which are a very dicey thing because it's basically poverty tourism if done wrong, and it's usually done wrong, which is why there's a joke about that related to Avery, because that's a real thing in college admissions. A lot of rich kids will write about doing mission trips and going to third world countries and helping the poors. And admissions officers hate those essays. And we're getting California sunshine, so I'm just going to be like, I'm going to fade off the screen like a ghost. Okay. It's like an Instagram filter.
Exactly.
But I've helped students write those well. Like I've helped them just find the angle. Like my student who went to Yale, she's like an adult now and she's doing such great things in the world. I love her. She wrote about, it wasn't a mission trip, but she did a program, like a pretty elite program. She did a medical trip and she wanted to be a doctor. To a country where she worked in an underfunded hospital, and I'm like, and so we found a way to write about that. Wow, I'm really disappearing.
It's okay. It's totally it is like one of the filters. Like,
hold on, I can shut the blinds. Hold on, it'll be a little weird. 1 second.
No worries. Oh man, so interesting, all of this. And thanks everybody for
there. I
am. There.
It's sunshine. It's California.
I got it.
Place.
It's like dark here, so 3 hours later, it's fine. What is this? Sorry.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was reading that. Like, what? Honestly, I'm not surprised. Name dropping. So there's also jokes. There's jokes in the book where Avery's mother keeps reminding her, don't forget to write about Hillary in your Wellesley essay because they know the Clintons is the implication. Because if you wanted to know, Hillary Clinton went to Wellesley, and Wellesley has a Wellesley 100 where you have to rate 2 of the prompts. There are 100 prompts that you can, or reasons to love. Well, it's reasons to love Wellesley, and you pick 2 of them to write short answers to. And one of them is like famous alumni. And so a lot of people will write about Hillary Clinton when they're applying to Wellesley. I have actually one of my hot tips I'll just throw in there. Don't write about campus. If you're writing supplements, like telling them that their campus is pretty is usually not the most interesting thing you can say to a university.
That makes sense.
I had to talk someone out of picking that one for the Wellesley 100. And I'm like, well, their campus is beautiful. You have 100 options. And I'm pretty sure they want you to pick another one. So yeah, that's what I'm
like part of. It's like part of the test is how good are you at picking a prompt?
And that girl went to Wellesley. Oh, my kids.
Oh man, yeah, it's definitely interesting, like the class dynamic stuff, because so my husband's a professor at NYU. And
we can talk about NYU financial aid offline because I have questions about how much it costs. Okay. Questions. Do you know how many students I talk out of applying to NYU? I am the killer of dreams. Do you think I'm bad about publishing? Wait until I drop that it's $77,000 a year. I believe it is. It was 75 a few years ago. I just round up every couple of years.
I mean, you're probably not wrong. Yeah,
now everyone will know. This is my public service announcement. NYU is expensive. And while some people may get aid from NYU, on average, most people do not, and it is expensive.
Yes, because it subsidizes all of the graduate students.
And it is a great university, and there's like...
It is.
But the perfect university for you is not just a great university, but a university you can afford without going into 6 figures of debt that will follow you until your dying day. And even then, it is not dischargeable in death. So... Did you know that? Well, private loans aren't. I mean, federal
loans aren't. Federal,
but
federal
fun fact, kids do not take private loans.
Also, this is why I have not refinanced my federal loans because of exactly that reason. Keep them with the government.
I got private, and I got private before schools cost $75,000 a year. I thought $42,000 a year was like peak, and that's how much it was when I went there. So think about it. It's more than doubled in not that long a time. But I got private loans, and it was $43,000 of debt, which I thought was a lot. And when I found out that like it was like an albatross around the interest alone, the interest kills you.
The interest is wild, yeah.
And the only reason I paid off those loans is because I got a book deal and kept my day job. Caveat.
That's amazing.
It's not like I'm rolling in money. Yeah. I have my day job.
I got through undergrad on scholarships, but I did a master's at a private university, and those are the loans. But they're all federal, thankfully.
That is a way to do it. Like, we're just giving college advice. If you know you're going to grad school, go to the cheapest undergraduate option you can because you save those loans for grad school. Go to the baller school for grad school because that is names matter for grad school in a way that they don't for undergraduate, depending on your major. So,
true. Yeah.
I would not advise anyone go into debt for Harvard undergraduate personally. But if you get into Harvard grad school, go to grad school, kid. It's Harvard.
But also, and the thing is, too, is it's mostly going to be masters because a good PhD program, they should be paying you to go.
Yep.
If you are paying to get a PhD, something's wrong. So,
yeah, I mean, we could have a whole conversation about MFAs, which I know aren't PhDs, but it's the one you get if you're a writer.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely interesting. So the thing that's fun about it is we both came from working class families. But now we live in Manhattan, and our kids go to public school with the children of like celebrities and very, very wealthy people, which like
how weird.
is it's very interesting when like you get invited to a birthday party for a 5-year-old where they rented out a theater to watch the Lego movie and got all the kids like stuff for the whole class. And I'm like, we're going to have
rich
cupcakes.
friends.
I know. I'm like, we will be having cupcakes in the park for our birthday party. So it's an interesting like social dynamic raising children that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and soon your children will make great YA protagonists. The next Gossip Girl. The outsider perspective works for a reason, because 99, like, we want to be in the rich world, but most of us, like, we're not going to be able to relate to the insider character. So, like, I ticked a YA protagonist trope list when I wrote this book. No regrets. So
no, it's great.
Also, I was like, I can't write boarding school from the perspective of a rich person, but I can write it as someone who was a scholarship student at somewhere. I'm like, I understand that. I understand having to have work study and like your friends kind of like looking down on you because of it. And I did ask.
I've been there because I went to a small private university for undergrad on a full ride scholarship and had a job to pay for like other stuff. So
I'm just so lucky I got work study, because not everyone gets work study, and I got a pretty good placement. There were good jobs and bad jobs, and I got a pretty good job. I got an office job.
Nice.
I worked for the film and I was basically like a secretary's assistant in the film and television department. And the irony being that now I work in TV, but like I learned so much about the industry. I wasn't a TV major because I basically I scheduled those classes and but that also went into the book. The parents shouting down the line, I pay $65,000 a year. Oh God, elementary school. Honestly, that would be
honestly,
you could write that as an adult thriller.
Oh,
something could happen. Just saying.
It is funny to me when I watch, because sometimes I'll see movies or shows where they'll take something and make it over the top. And I'm like, yeah, but also something very similar to that happened at a Manhattan playground, mothers being like, we don't use the word no with our child. I found that instead saying that's not available works better. I'm like, thank you for telling me how to parent my second child.
I will say,
okay,
no wasn't outlawed, but my mother was able to drop a weaponized unacceptable on me, and it actually did wonders. I will when she pulled out the unacceptable, I was
yeah,
because disappointment was not far behind. And disappointing my parent was the shame.
No,
but no, I mean, those scenes you see, and you're like, no, they're.
It's like, oh no, it's not.
Well, and so I was able to put things in the book that are real. So I had a parent call me once, and so I just I had Olivia make a joke in the book. Very, very concerned how their child would do laundry as a freshman. And they wanted to speak to the dean of the department to discuss some of their concerns about their child's transition. And I was like, the dean, I didn't say this. I said he's not available right now, but I'm happy to try and help. The dean is not going to talk to you about how your precious is going to learn how to do laundry at college. What? Excuse me? But also, fun fact I did discover about boarding school, which is not true in college. They do your laundry for you.
What?
I know. I was watching. There are a couple of people on YouTube who have done day in the life at boarding school or week in the life at boarding school, and I've watched some of them.
Oh,
and
wow.
she was like, Monday is laundry day, and I was like, they do your because that's one thing that's different from college. So
that explains.
Kind of cool though. And same thing, that's how I got hip with the kids about what they're wearing and what they put on their face, because I'm like, I don't know what's cool. I mean, this sounds so old. I have an alpha reader who is 20, and she checks me. It's great.
I love it.
That's how I was like, okay, the kids at the boarding school are wearing Brandy Melville. Okay. What's today's Charlotte Roos? Okay. I need to. I don't know.
No,
honestly,
that's
YouTube is a wonder.
Things change so much. And I mean, you're writing for teenagers and you want it to be relevant to the people who are. I do wonder about that, because sometimes I'll read YA books where I'm like, I'm like, I get all of these references, but
yeah, and
I'm in my 30s.
And my favorite one though is when they skirt it by being like, my mom was really into this, so this is why I'm into it. And even I have cheated with that a tiny bit.
Yeah.
But like when they have like weird anachronistic music tastes and you're like, wait.
Well, especially when I'm like, this is stuff that my parents listened to, and I'm in my 30s. So like, did their grandparents listen?
Oh, actually, so in my new one, I do have I have a lot of boomer jokes actually, because my mystery straddles 50 years basically. I've got a murder from the 1970s and a murder from now. Writing, so I have a lot of boomers, but I have a teenager make a joke about Simon and Garfunkel to my main character, and she kind of looks at him and is like, "I usually get that from boomers. You're weird." And then he lives with his granddad. She's like, that's, and I did that because I named her Cecilia. And that is because of my reference, because oldies were cool in the 90s in a way that I don't know if they are now. So it's really my frame of reference that I'm excusing. But in fairness, then this is a terrifying thought. My main character's parent would be my age or a little older. So she's allowed to name her that name for that reason. And it hurts me inside to say that. Oh yeah, I describe her mother's teenage bedroom and I just put posters that I had in my bedroom.
Look, you know what I actually always wonder if people think about with writing these books, like the ages of parents, depending on where people live, because the thing I've noticed,
some people don't think about it, and it's really clear that they don't.
Yeah. Well, because the thing too is like, depending on where your character lives, like people have babies at such different ages. So like if somebody's from the Midwest, their parents probably had them in their early 20s. If somebody's from New York City, their parents probably had them in their 40s. Like, is more likely.
Yeah. Well, and exactly, you have to take that into consideration. I'm someone who had an old mom, so I'm always hyper aware. But like, I went to high school in Georgia, and I mean, even using myself as an example, because I am 37 and very childless. Like, I hope thank you. I actually am getting my hair cut tomorrow for the first time in a long time. This is too long for my tastes. And all my colors growing out. So that's a nice compliment on what I consider old, like ready to be cut hair. I use a lot of product to get it to do this though.
I love it.
So like I haven't had kids yet, but I hope to, but I will be an old parent. Peers of mine from high school, maybe grandparents soon. Potentially, depending. Well, because people I went to high school with, their kids are graduating from high school. Blows my mind. Blows it. I'm like, that's so weird.
Yeah.
I am right. Oh my God, I'm writing books for their children. Oh God. That's funny. Yeah.
Well, that's the weird thing, I think, for me too, is because we've lived in different places. Because I'm like 34 and my oldest kid is 7. Okay. So that's normal in some places in Manhattan.
And not normal in other places.
Yeah. I am like at least 10 years younger than all the other parents.
See, that gives me hope for my future. LA has like a good mix too. It depends what part of LA you're in. So
yeah. It's interesting how that works. Okay, so like look at my list of things. We're going off on random things.
No, I warned you. I was like, or I warned when I posted it somewhere and was like, I'll probably talk for far too long and about like random stuff. So.
No, it's okay. I think it's fun. Okay. So thing I want to talk about, and we can talk about like across your books, the Ivies, whatever. I like that you try to have some like fat or plus size representation. Sometimes to some degree. Moderately. Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, part of it is just honestly self-insert syndrome. And so I have to be careful because it's like you can't make every single main character 5'10" and kind of curvy. I've done it. Well, I did it twice in a row. I got my 2. Yeah. The next one, she's like whatever normative is, like I don't describe her as particularly tall and I don't go into details of her body because it's just like it's weirdly weird. This is like adjacent to fat rep just because I'm tall fat person. Just tall people, tall girls in YA is weirdly rare. So that's like a starting point. And then I just it's easier, honestly. I'm like, well, I know what it's like to be taller than everyone else, and I know what it's like to have these giant things. Like, you can literally use them as a shelf. So like, and you can't, I mean, you know, I don't do the arms because my arms didn't wave when I was a teenager. But you know, I've got like the hips, and I know what it's like to occupy space in that way. And I'm like, why not write a girl who just exists in that body? Because I'm not writing issues contemporary. So like, I don't really have like a need or cause to write any kind of arc. And I also just don't enjoy personally, like, I don't at this juncture, never say never, want to write a book that revolves around, well, especially because I like to avoid things like weight loss plots and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's like, it's my lived experience. It's the real world. I will say what I am less good at, and I think it's just tricky, is incidental fat characters. I've done mains because like it's easy for me to write from my experience. Although I did purposefully make Ethan not a normal thin dude. Like I made a joke that moms of a certain age might call him husky is like my joke, because I was like, how do you describe? And that's just,
I noticed. I liked that.
The guy I had a crush on in high school, he actually ended up later losing a ton of weight, which is a whole other thing. But like, I like chubby guys. So I was like, why not have a love interest who's just like, has, you know, and so it comes up in this book in a way that it didn't necessarily as much in The Stars We Steal, but like just little things where I was like, oh yeah, if I have two characters hide in a shower and neither of them are stock standard thin, they're going to touch, which is a bonus. You think about your body and how you fit into spaces differently when you have a non-standard body. And so there was also a line that I actually, my editor had a question about it. I was like, no, I really want to keep that just because it's like a tiny sliver of authenticity, at least something that I experienced, where when I was a teenager, I wrongly had this idea that I would be safe from like things like sexual assault, and like because I was bigger than everyone else. And I purposefully had a moment in this book where there's a moment of peril for Olivia where she realizes like she's not as strong as she thinks she is. At the end of the day, if someone is choosing to hurt her, she is vulnerable, because that is something I discovered in my 20s. But it was like just a very like specific to her thing, that I was like, it's just like a tiny throwaway line, but it's like something that's authentic to her. And also just that she rose crew. And that's because someone tried to recruit me in college because apparently it's good if you're tall and you have strong thighs. I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because you have to be like really strong.
No, that makes sense. I mean, that totally makes sense. This is cool. Well, people are loving this. We've got people who are happy about the the representation. Yeah, I appreciate it. I notice a lot of those little details, and I just think it's good to have it even casually, even if not everybody's picking up on it. I just think like normalizing having different kinds of characters is great.
Also, just because, again, self-insert, I'll probably do it more in the future because I know what it's like. I literally don't understand what it is like to be in a small, dainty lady's body. I don't. So, not like I couldn't write it because it's every book. But I'm like, like, why not? Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it does inform things because, like, you know, like there are certain things about how you move through the world that are just different, or your experiences.
I knock things with my hip all the time. I really don't realize, and like when you're sitting in a chair and you're like, wait, does this touch the person next to me?
Right. Or even things like, I don't know. It's always funny to me, like when I'll know the kind of thing I notice is when somebody writes a larger character and I'm like, you clearly haven't really experienced this, or they'll have that character like run around all day in just like a dress or something without wearing shorts underneath. And I'm like, I actually
had to explain that to someone recently. So someone in a writer group is writing a larger, younger character. I was asking about running specifically, and I was like, well, Let me tell you about some things, because I was a fat kid. And she had mentioned like something about like belly, and I'm like, honestly, you're 12 and you're fat. That's not the problem. It's your thighs and your boobicles, depending on their size, because it's uncomfortable. Also, and I didn't even get into like back fat stuff, but I feel like, I was like, it depends on the size of your 12-year-old. But
I mean,
fat kid. And honestly, talking to her, just giving her some like advice, I was like, never say never on writing middle grade, because I remembered all these really humiliating stories from being a fat kid, specifically related to gym class, where I was like, I could use this in a book.
I hated gym class so much.
And just like, all it takes is one. And I had one at a formative age, the gym teacher who humiliates you. Like, it just, and for me, it was like, it wasn't even just like my size, but also I'm uncoordinated on a good day. Like, and so like when we were doing things like kickball, but like, I always translated that to like body. Oh, and I don't know if they did this at your school. Like the presidential fitness bullshit. They publicly weighed us.
Wow.
That's how I remember how much I weighed when I was 8, because I will never forget the feeling when they read out my weight from the scale, and I weighed 30 to 40 pounds more than everyone else. I was also taller than everyone else, but still, I was a little chumpalump. Puberty hit me like a Mack truck.
Oh my God. I don't think we had that. Like, I don't think they read stuff out loud that I remember.
Don't do that anymore, but it was an elementary school in Washington, D.C. And I remember lining up to get on the scale and like sitting and just like feeling like such a shitty person, because it was such a high number, relatively speaking. And because like the irony is, like, the weight that I was when I was 8 years old is more than some fit, thin women weigh as an ideal goal weight.
But also though, I think a lot of people lie,
but also I think a lot of ideal weights are bullshit. When I think about the ideal weight the doctor 100%. Wanted me to be at 5'10", I won't go into numbers, because like we don't want to like trigger.
No. Yeah.
But I think about it and I'm like, that was grossly unhealthy and deeply irresponsible, and literally fed into it what essentially became a low-key eating disorder. Like, meaning my idea of my body and eating, it was not okay when I was a teen. And I actually didn't break any of those bad thought patterns till my 30s. So my 30s are great. I don't hate myself. I don't have I don't binge eat as much, because I'm no longer feeling guilty about food.
Look, okay, so weird thing, right? Is that like,
when you don't hate yourself, you're like, oh, okay, I can eat 2
and like when you stop obsessing about what you're eating all the time, it's amazing how you can just eat what you want to eat and stop.
And it clears your headspace. I get intense about things, and when it's about eating, it's not good for anyone involved. I become deeply unpleasant on a diet, so I don't diet anymore. I will make slow and gradual lifestyle changes. I can manage those, but I don't do counting. I can't think about numbers, because it just messes with me. And same thing where
you'd spend your like all of the time, because I can remember too, like spending all
and you'll
my
never
time
be good enough.
About
you'll
it. Never
reach your goal. And I've just to get a little like dark. I watched my mom to the day she died, not happy with her weight, and I'm like, what a waste of time.
Yeah. Like to spend your whole life not being happy with yourself. When
I don't have time for that.
No.
And I just wish, like, so maybe I will eventually write Fat Kid Middle Grade at some point, or maybe even like Fat Kid YA. I just wish teen me knew that there was nothing wrong with me.
Seriously. My
eating habits weren't even that bad. The only positive change that came from doing Weight Watchers at 14, I did
too. I was like probably 15 or 16. Yeah.
And in fairness, I wanted to go. No one, like, that was self-directed. Because I started high school, and that's when you really start hating yourself. Anyway, and chasing popularity and what have you. Not that I was ever going to be popular, but that is when I learned to, like, how to describe it. It's like, I was a lot more knee-jerk in terms of eating a lot of potatoes, eating a lot of pasta, like the carby comfort foods, things like peanut butter. And at the time, I basically went cold turkey and or learned to do like the low-fat Weight Watchers ones, like the twice-baked potato with low-fat sour cream is like a trick. So the whole thing. But I have literally zero problem eating all of those foods in moderation as an adult because I went for so many years not eating them all the time that they're just like really pleasant treat foods for me. And I stopped drinking soda because of Weight Watchers when I was 14 as well. And juice. I stopped drinking juice. And I've just never had like real cravings for it ever since. I basically only drink water, and then soda and like cocktails are treats. But even like saying that they're treats, I'm like, disordered eating. But like I know. Can only go so far. But like but everything else about going on diets as a teenager was bad. It was bad. It was very bad. It didn't help.
No. Well, and I think the years of that have probably, if anything, like hurt my metabolism.
Oh, 100%. I basically ruined myself before I even had a chance. And it wasn't even high school that it was my ups and downs with my weight in college. That's what killed it. The up and the down. Every summer, I would lose weight. Oh, just thinking about, and I think about that weight now. Again, I won't say numbers, but if I weighed that now, I'm hot now, but I'd be so hot. Like, meaning there was literally nothing wrong with my weight in college. No. But trying to get down, I just go back up.
So I, at one point, right before I got pregnant with my first, we started trying for our first baby, got down to like a goal weight. Yeah. And I had so much like kind of dysmorphia, really. Like I thought I still saw myself as too big. I still thought I should lose like more weight. And looking back, I was like very, very, very skinny, like skinnier than I should have been probably. Yep. It didn't last long because then I got pregnant. And
I wasn't my thinnest, which was after I did Weight Watchers in high school. I look by senior year, I look great, but I thought I didn't think I was done, and I continued the toxic diet habits that don't work.
Yeah. The mental piece of it is so unhealthy. And this is what I've tried to avoid, because I can remember being in that place and I would like look at my wedding photos and be grossed out at myself in my wedding photos. And I was like, no, that is not okay. Like something is wrong if that's like how it's not healthy. So
and I have to say, like, as like a hop, skip and jump from that, like, I don't know if you find this, but that's what I find surprisingly useful about YouTube. I've become accustomed to having to look at myself all the time, and I don't hate looking at myself anymore.
Same.
Like I still sometimes will look at something and I'll go like, oh, your chin. But like it's just like an offhand comment. It's not like, I'm like, that's what I look like. That's cool.
I mean, like you have days and there's also angles.
And then do guys do this?
That's the most part. I don't know. I don't know.
Do we torture ourselves? Oh, it's fine. Yeah.
But generally, like, I think like I'm happier with myself and have a better relationship with food than I have in a long time. And like, I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm gonna just.
Yeah. And I try like, and I still, of course, have the potential to fail, but that's why in my books as well, my characters eat what they want when they want to. And I don't insert food guilt. That's why there's a scene, Olivia, I just have her eat a bagel. I'm like, yeah, she eats that bagel. No regrets. No comments. Nothing. And I had some commentary on Avery eating, and I walked it back a little, and I still don't know if I like nailed it. Anyway, it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard to like figure out that line with stuff, and like I don't know,
because I know what the line is for me, but like
yeah, it's interesting. This is interesting.
I think men are also. There's a whole standard for men with like musculature and whatnot that can really get them. There are standards, toxic standards of masculinity.
Okay, so this is interesting because I have heard that especially in the gay community, it can be very toxic, where there's much more of a push to like be physically a certain.
I used to work out with Richard Simmons, so I did see a bit of that.
Yeah,
which is the whole period of my life. That was very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so I think we're all over the place. All right. So, couple other questions. Okay, so here's what I have a couple other questions about the book, and then if people in the comments want to think about if you have questions you want to ask us or Alexa primarily, think of those, and you can put them in the comments.
It's great.
It's been fun.
I wouldn't be this casual if I didn't already know you.
I know. I mean that. Yeah. Like I figured. I was like,
YouTube. This is our space. You know.
Well, we kind of chat, so I was like, I think this will be fine. I'll just kind of put it together like some things. I would be way more nervous
really
if I didn't.
Because like your stop on the tour is going to be totally different from everyone else's. So.
It's true, which I think it's fun. Okay, well, but when I saw you posted on Instagram, I was like, yes, I will sign up for that. That sounds like
I was glad. I was so like saw a couple of names that I knew, and I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. I think it's cool. Okay, so writing the Ivies, what was the most fun thing for you to write, and what was maybe the hardest piece of the writing process?
Yeah, I think the most fun, the party scene in the third act.
Okay.
Because that, I always have a set piece I write toward, and actually, weirdly, a lot of the time it's parties. Are you shocked? I have a problem. I knew that I wanted to have like that rager party at the rich person's home. Like my original conception that kind of morphed because like I was like, it's the house in the woods of like in like the mountain. Like if this took place in Colorado, it'd be like a mountain lodge. I wanted to be like that scene in the movie / TV show. And so that was so much fun, especially once I had the really morbid idea to make it a costume party. I am both proud and ashamed, and I had fun coming up with that. I don't want to spoil it for people, but I hope you're scandalized, and I hope you hate me just a little.
I kind of, you know what though? I kind of loved it because
rich kids would. They would. It's so
and
like I think, sociopathic and generational.
Well, I think it's especially interesting, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I think it's especially interesting because you wrote this before you knew how bad everything with the pandemic was going to get. And so I think in light of, so it hits even more like,
Well, the thing I had in mind, like definitely popped into my mind when I was doing that though, was like thinking of the classic, like, and he is allowed to grow and change and we are happy for him. But I was thinking of Prince Harry dressing up as a Nazi to a costume party. It's such a rich British thing to do. And I was like, what's my equivalent? Yeah. We did it.
Yeah. Well, we had somebody else who also, I mean, I was like, it was, I think it worked.
Yeah. I had fun with that. And then challenging, most difficult. Action set pieces are always hard for me, but I'd say I'm sure I can. I mean, there's plenty that's hard. I'm trying to think if there's like a part of the book that I like that was like painful to write that I didn't want to write, other than writing the ending 3 times. But
I mean, that's
my whole brain has gone blank.
That's okay. You can say writing the ending 3 times.
Yeah, the thing is, like, sometimes the hardest things are the most satisfying. And I'm so proud of that ending and happy with it. Where I'm like, that was worth
ending.
But it was technically the hardest, 100%. That was the hardest because just like striking the right balance of like tone, and because that essentially that's when the book says what the book is going to say. And I made a very definitive decision in making changes, and I was like, well, there's no coming back from this. So that was definitely hard. And I'm figuring out a way to release the original ending as bonus material. I'm still figuring out how to do that because I ran out of time to do a pre-order campaign. So if people have bought or read the book from their library, I will have some sort of like fulfillment thing. My publisher's typesetting it now, so you can read the submission version of the ending, which is the literal polar opposite.
That'll be interesting.
Well, so you know how there's a thing that the rich people do that's really bad? it's the difference of that becoming public and that not becoming public, and it completely changes the ending. And it changes relationships. It changes who's still speaking to each other. It's a complete. I can tell you when we're done what it is, but it's
you'll have to tell me. Yeah.
And so when my publisher wanted to buy the book, they were like, "We love it, but we want to change the ending." And I was like, and at first I was like, "No," and then I really warmed up to it, and now I can't think of it any other way.
Yeah.
So that was the original. That is true. Olivia was a different character in that version of the book. So she was actually a worse character, which is the irony. She's actually technically a nicer person in the published version. Well, because there was a point when I was writing it where my agent was like, you got to pick. She's likable or she's unlikable. And I actually picked unlikable. And then undid all of that when I edited it with my editor. She went back to being likable.
I kind of think it's for the
likable.
Best
that's in quotes. She's a mix. Relatable was the idea, that she had to be a little more sympathetic, and that's what I changed her to. Because it is true, you feel differently for a character who knowingly does terrible things versus someone who made a mistake, you know?
Right.
She's still dumb.
Yeah.
I purposefully set her up as Bizarro World me. I would literally never be friends with the Ivies. Like, she made that bed and she got into that bed. And I'm like,
yeah, I mean,
this is on you. I would never trust these people. So
it's kind of true.
But the whole idea is that, like, if you're ambitious, it can be twisted into a really ugly way. And you can fail to recognize yourself after a point. So. I
mean, that's why there's a lot of books that play with that I think do well. I think it's interesting. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to put up a couple of questions. I do have a couple other things I'm curious about, but I'm just going to, other people have questions. So how do you feel when people read your self-insert parts? And on the flip side, how do you feel about parts people assume is self-insert? Oh, that's an interesting question.
I mean, it's funny. I haven't yet, knock on wood, been accused of a blatant self-insert, though. I don't know if I'd be insulted if I was. I mean, it would depend on the levels. It's mostly when I see people that not necessarily know that something is a part of me, and they criticize something, and I'll be like, it's normally when they go like, this is so inaccurate. You're like, well, that's literally based on my real experience, but okay. And so I take it in stride for the most part. But in fairness, I can say that because I feel so fortunate that my first book wasn't published. Because I would have had a whole different level of vulnerability if that version of me literally made it into the world and on the page. Whereas I have far less of me has made it into my mains, especially. And it's so funny because I've seen people on The Stars We Steal criticize Leo, not like Leo, and they're like, "Oh, she was so awful to Elliot. I love Elliot." I'm like, "Yeah, a lot of myself is an Elliot. I also am Team Elliot. I'm not insulted when you don't like this thing that my main character did, because I put that part of myself into that character too. I really do. I mean, this is what authors do. I spread myself out, including to the bad guys, except not the one in this book. I don't really relate to them personally. But in the next one, maybe. No.
Interesting.
Well, I think the most interesting bad guys, you take a sliver of your darkest thought and then you make it worse. Yeah. And you have them do things that you wouldn't do.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes for
or you just watch a lot of serial killer documentaries.
Or that.
Pathology, man. I find it interesting. They're really interesting. Kind of the things that someone who literally thinks differently than you, how they might do something that you would literally just never do. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Will you ever go back to sci-fi or fantasy? Maybe a murder fantasy with speculative elements?
Yeah. Well, one of my shelved, not permanently shelved, but temporarily shelved, YA fantasy ideas has a murder plot in it. So yes. And then I have a semi-plotted out sci-fi thriller that I never wrote because my last publisher said no need to send us sci-fi for your option. So I just put ideas on ice. So yes. Yeah, and that's I might go back to it, but honestly, for the time being, I'm pretty entrenched in thriller. they're easier to write. I know that sounds terrible, but like because I don't have to worry about like pop culture references or slang. I can just like, well, that's what's great about thriller. I'm like, they can just be sarcastic and snarky, and I understand the references, and the dialogue flies, it flows. But also, I just have a million ideas for thrillers. So yes, but not in the short term. But also, if I ever figure out how to write faster, you will be more likely to get those. I'm just so slow. I can only write a book a year, basically, which is a real shame.
I mean, which also might be because you have 4 jobs.
Yeah, though that's honestly the problem. Well, I guess technically I have 3 right now. I have my day job, writing books, and YouTube. It's like 3.5 with the volunteer stuff. So yeah, I'm so tired.
But still, I mean, we all are. That's fine.
Exactly. Everyone, how do you do everything? Me, poorly, tired. Yeah, I ignore my social media a lot of the time, like a lot. Just not there. So, like, I like tweeted I think twice today. I'm like, what are you doing? People will wonder what happened. I'm just not on Twitter most of the time anymore. I can't especially because I'm on deadline now. I literally can't be on Twitter if I want to get anything done. So
I have found that like TikTok is such a time suck.
That's the other reason I put TikTok away, because I was enjoying it a little too much.
It is fun. But like it's literally like you can spend an hour just like scrolling and you don't even notice, and you're like, oh shoot, I need to stop. Yeah, but I've been having fun. It's been like a fun creative outlet for trying stuff. But yeah. Okay. When it comes to the Ivies, how did you decide where the book should start? Let's say if a book is about a main character going off to another country, how do you decide where the book should start off?
At the point right before things are going to change. So for me with the Ivies, like I knew that it had to be early decision day. And I knew it had to be like just before my character would receive like that linchpin news. If someone was going off to another country, like I've actually thought about this because I was a high school foreign exchange student, and I've thought about writing a book about that. I would say it's when they're in the airport and like they're going to take off and the adventure is about to begin, like is when I would do that. And then of course, like don't spend too much on the plane. You want to get them to where they're going. But you want a little bit of like status quo establishment, essentially like the before, but not too much. And then throw them into the change. So yeah.
Awesome. What's a trope you really love that you didn't get to use in the Ivies and you're looking forward to putting into a future book?
Well, in the next one, that's why I'm writing a Small Town Secrets book, because I love them. And also Dual Timeline Murder. That's another one. Dead Homecoming Queens. I'm using that one. Love Triangle. I'm writing a love triangle. Romantic trope. This is like a, it's not literally it's not a thriller trope, but I want to write sharing a bed. Naked bodies for warmth. God, because I have read Six of Crows, which makes me a terrible human being. But when I saw they had that trope on the show, because I watched Shadow and Bone, I was like, yes, we're here for this. We're here for this. And someday I want to write that. Like just like if it's like really hate to love, I someday, and then I want to do all the tropes that come with that, including sharing a bed, huddling for warmth. We're trapped in the closet. That's like an old Harry Potter trope, but no, where people would get magically trapped in closets and have to make out. Sure,
but it's so fun. Well, did you read In a Holidays?
No,
the Christina. Okay, so it was the Christina Lauren holiday book, and my favorite scene is they're like, so everybody like there's these families that get together in this cabin in the holidays, and the two like love interests. The family is playing sardines, which is where, and they end up in a closet together and have like a makeout scene until a nephew comes and finds them. It's great. It's like
I love all that stuff. I love it. I love it so much. And then thriller trope wise, gosh, I have so many. Because there's only so many that organically fit into a boarding school book. I definitely want to do more like the killer is close to you type of stuff, psychological type stuff, because I like all of that. Unreliable narrator. Someday I will have the skill for that. Today is not that day.
I love an unreliable narrator when it's done well.
Oh, when it's done well. And I just am not there yet. Multi POV, I know that's not a trope, but I want to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I am noticing this in the comments, and I'm just like, skin to skin with this how she met her ex, 3 blocks from the White House in a park in a tent during a protest. Like, someone needs to write that as
yeah.
a thing. That's so good. Those are all good.
I like Alexia M's question.
Yes.
Ivies. Done. Like, and I'm still like, this is.
It would be a great movie. It would. So
I mean, I already literally posted a whole video begging people to buy my book because I have no shame anymore. Because I will tell you, like, if this book does well, and it has to do well, it could actually sell for TV. I have a film agent. She is amazing, but she has flat out told me because of changes with the industry and the pandemic, they're not taking as many risks anymore, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people who are optioning things, they need the book to be successful first. So buy it. I know that sounds terrible, but it's true. Like, there's still hope for the Ivies. Things can be optioned for film long after they come out. It's not like it's not over yet. Or if you know any celebrities who you think would like to produce their own projects, tell them to read the book, because that happens a lot too. Like, if someone reads it, they're like, I want to play this part, then they will option it. And like, you know, if someone like, isn't her name Olivia Rodrigo? She's got like the sad breakup album. If she would like to read my book and like play a part, like, she's hot. She could make something happen in Hollywood. There are other people, I'm sure. So yeah.
Well, if anybody knows anyone, send them the Ivies.
So right now it's the Ivies.
It would be great. It would be great. I mean, it would
there are multiple plot lines where I just have like throwaway lines where I thought to myself, you should write a whole subplot about this thing. That would make a great red herring. And then I didn't write them. So I literally have nuggets for a writing staff. I have an entire subplot related to Emma interning for Avery's mom the summer before, and maybe some shit going down, and like having this whole thread of like corporate espionage that I didn't write.
Oh my gosh.
So that could be on a TV show, because I want Charlize Theron to play Catherine Montfort. So she's a production company. Hi. Yeah. Anyway. And then honestly, my next one though, Murder She Texted, would make a really good limited series. Because it's like Big Little Lies, but YA kind of. It's got that vibe. It's like NorCal, rich people, crashing ocean waves, secrets. Yeah. Mixed with like
a lot of stuff like that. That's
revival.
Fun.
So yeah.
Okay, well, everybody just needs to go buy Ivies and read it. I think it's super fun. It's one of those ones I think, like, I feel like people would enjoy it. They just need to read it. It's a beach read.
Yeah. Buy it. You know, I don't know if we're on planes now. I'm not. But your road trip, if you're finally leaving your apartment and you're going somewhere, buy the book. If you don't get car sick, what do you read? Yeah. Audiobook.
Oh yeah, you were saying there's an audiobook coming out too.
Yeah, that was actually really cool. It's the first time I've gotten to pick my narrator. So that was cool. Random House sent me 3 options and I got to pick my favorite, and I got her.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she did the cheerleaders. Awesome. Like when I saw that she did a Kara Thomas book, and I listened to all of them, but it was like a bonus that she did a Kara Thomas book.
Yeah,
but like it was fun because I got to be like, does this sound like Olivia? And there was actually one that I listened to. I was like, that's Cecilia, which is my next main character. So yeah,
interesting.
Different. Authors are crazy. We write fake people, and then they become real to us. I feel bonkers sometimes where I'm like, yeah, that character wouldn't do that, so I can't write that. And I'm literally the author, but no.
No, but you know what? I appreciate that because it drives me nuts as a reader when I see an author writing a series where, because it's what people want from them,
or
they do something in a sequel. No, well, sometimes it's because I'm like, the readers responded strongly, and so they did a thing, and I'm like, that is not what the character you wrote would do.
Yeah.
Like, that is inconsistent. I don't know.
It could also make murder investigations really interesting. I've definitely had moments where I'm like, I need this character to get there, but how? That's always fun. Where I'm like, oh no. And it goes both ways, because it's like, they're not stupid enough to do the easy thing. So how do I make this logically work?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you try to do that. It's and also, like, to be fair, like, the
Olivia still makes some
I'm
very stupid decisions.
I mean, she's a teenager. I have a little bit of.
She didn't know. I know that. I mean, well, and that's the thing. There are definitely points of the book where, like, the reader sees it coming and they're like, "Why? No." Yeah.
Yeah.
I have that in the new one.
She doesn't know.
I have this whole set piece where I'm like, and we'll see if my editor likes it. I'm like, it's way too obvious who the killer is in this scene. It's right before the climax, so that is okay, I hope. But I'm like, I want every single reader to just cringe the entire time they read this, because she's literally walking into a really terrible situation. I'm
that's so good though.
It's gonna be so good. Pretty dramatic.
Like, it's like, I love it. I love it. It's gonna be great. Yay. Well, everybody wants to read the Ivies now, which is great. Good. Everybody go read the Ivies. It's fantastic. Pre-orders are coming. Yay. I love this. Pre-orders coming tomorrow. All my close friends are in love with the concept. When I pitched it to them last week, I'm doing the Lord's work for this book.
No, like, seriously, honestly, word of mouth is king with thrillers. And I'm like, because we can be a little crafty, like, because I got my channel. Like, strategically, it's a whole different ballgame from the genre I was writing before, where it's literally like, it's not necessarily about like publisher push helps, but it's the readers. Thriller readers tell other people whether they liked a book. And we've actually seen books organically grow as thrillers. And I think that's so cool, where it's like, I hope people like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. This is, I don't know. Is it?
No. Random House also has my rights in the UK and Commonwealth countries. And so in fact, it's the hardcover. I checked it. So it's the hardcover coming out same day. Although I did see, it was funny, I saw in Waterstones, they had the hardcover at 2 price points, which means they have both. It must be one printed domestically, but they must also have an import. Because I'm like, why? It's the same hardcover releasing tomorrow. One's £13.99 and one's £20.99. So one must be my US version. I don't know.
Probably. That's so interesting. Heading to Barnes & Noble just for Alexa.
Yay. And tell them. And also, if you're in Barnes & Noble and they have a YA mysteries and thrillers table, just grab a copy of the Ivies and just put it on the table. Put it next to the Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Thank you.
Love it.
It's okay. And don't tell them that you're buying the book. Because it's still definitely possible, if it sells decently, Barnes & Noble could increase their order and put me in a second printing. So yay. Because of printer shortages and paper shortages, I have a pretty modest print run. Not like decent, but not like bonkers. So in a good way, I could exceed expectations, everyone. Yay.
Yeah.
This is like
I love it.
Stuff. I love it.
I mean, if you can't say it here, where can you say
right? No, I find it so interesting because like every time I go through the process, I learn more about the industry on each book just because I ask questions. And like I just asked what's my order? Like how many copies did so and so buy? And my editor told me. I'm like, that's so cool that I know this. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. I feel like the more I'm just doing booktube stuff, the more I learn about things too. Okay. So I don't know if anybody has other questions. My one other thing I was wanting to ask about is, how do you balance like author YouTube stuff? Because like you talk about writing and books and stuff on YouTube. You also are an author. Like, how does that work for you?
It's not always easy, and half the time I'm convinced I'm doing it poorly, honestly. I mean, recently, actually, I've pulled back on my video upload schedule because I've had to, because my day job has been busy and I'm still on deadline for my book. I'm drafting really slowly. So it's just prioritizing the author part, the writing part when I have to. And also we'll talk about my own like personal vulnerabilities. I'm also very aware of like, I very much see myself as and want to be an author who is on YouTube. I would be very fearful, or am definitely fearful, like, of being the author whose advice platform overtakes my actual books. And I've seen that happen with some author brands where, like, yeah, people love their free advice, but they don't buy their books or read their books. And so, like, in terms of balance, I try to think, like, I want to have a channel that's interesting and useful and people like it, and I make the videos that I enjoy, but I want to, like, the writing will always have to come first for me. And if I ever were put in a position to choose, which at this juncture I don't think I would be, I would sooner scale back on YouTube than I love the writing too much, because I love it. Yeah. Does that answer the spirit of your question? I feel like your question could go in a couple different directions.
Yeah, no, I mean, I actually think that's interesting. I was probably thinking too of, like, how, like, I find it interesting, and I think a lot of, like, this is a thing I see come up with, like, aspiring writers who do booktube stuff. How do you balance the, like, reviewing books and being an author? And, like, I know that's, like, a hard line to walk.
It is hard. And again, I'm not convinced that I'm doing it right. At first I didn't review books at all. But then my publicist, and she was right, she said, you should have some content on your channel because it's your primary and growing platform that is reader friendly. So it's not just writer, like, your target audience isn't writers, in case they find your YouTube channel and you want to give them something to watch. And that's why I started doing booktube type stuff. And I mean, I used to love reviewing books, like, before I wrote them. And there are a couple snarky reviews I did have to delete from my past, my dark past. Well, and I wanted to be a film critic in college. I just love criticism. I love like thinking about who would enjoy something and, like, talk, like, kind of talking technically about it. And so, like, I'm just trying to strike a balance in terms of, like, feeling my way through it, like, reading books and see how I feel about them. And, like, every once in a while it's like, oh, I just won't talk about that. But that's pretty rare. It's finding ways to fairly talk about what I think about books, but also that I read like a writer, and I'm like, on a certain level, I hope that's useful to those who are also writers watching my channel. Because I like to be able to be like, oh, this is why this book was 4 stars for me instead of 5 stars, because, like, there's just one thing, but this is also, like, a personal preference for me as a reader. And I like kind of paying that apart, though. There's a couple books where, like, God, if I could, like, truly pick it apart as a writer, I would, where, like, I could actually tell you what's wrong with a book, which is a fascinating thing. But that's the thing. I'd be really, really careful with, like, the line that you cross.
Yeah.
And for all I know, there are some author out there, I've tried to be very careful with YA, but for all I know, there's some adult thriller writer out there who hates me and someday will punch me in the face on a panel, or I won't get invited to something because they're making decisions and they're like, we hate her. So, you know, it could backfire. I could have failed. We don't know. Yeah. Hopefully not.
I mean, that's always you do the best you can. I love your book reviews. I think they are so interesting. And from what I see, I'm not alone. So yeah, I agree.
I like making them because I'm just like, let's nerd out. Let's just do it.
Yeah. Look, do this.
So on my bucket list of publishing things that you might be surprised to hear I have never had, that I still really want, is a foreign sale, because I have never had one.
Oh.
Because the UK doesn't count. It's an English sale. And I'm actually lucky to have gotten a UK deal for my first duology, because they don't buy a lot of American books, and especially sci-fi. But I have never sold a foreign edition, and all of my friends have. I am the only person I know who hasn't. And it's because I keep writing things that apparently don't do well in the foreign market. So yes, please. Sci-fi, apparently, A. And B, the Ivies is really American. Apparently it's painful. And I'm like, yeah, it's about college admissions.
Yeah, I mean, the college stuff.
And yet I'm like, come on. Federal scandal, people. This is interesting. But I think that what happens then is, because my publishers, because you can get the book in, like, France or Germany or Sweden. It's just the English version. And so it's like a smaller group of readers who are going to read the book in the original English. I want a translation so bad. I tried so hard. My second book, my main character was German, and I still couldn't get a German edition. Yeah. I'm trying.
Well, fingers crossed. Either this one or like maybe small town secrets. Maybe.
I feel like eventually it'll happen, but it's just fascinating because everyone's journey is different, and that is a publishing seemingly standard thing that has not happened for me yet. So
that's so interesting.
And I want a movie deal. TV, really. I want a TV deal.
Yeah. I mean,
I think the Ivies should be a limited series. I think it would really work as like a 8-episode run.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Is this your first book to be in Target?
I don't think I am in Target, so no. Very few books get to be on the shelves. I'm on Target.com, but that's the ordering system, which means it's just like buying it from any other retailer. But if you see me at Target, you will make my dreams come true and tell me. But as far as I am aware, I do not believe I am in Target. I don't think I'm in any of the big box retail stores, but I could be if I'm successful.
I hope
someday.
So. It would be great. Yeah. Oh, I love this. That's awesome. Yay. Love the reviews. Does being a writer negatively impact your enjoyment of reading?
Yeah, it can. 100%. It depends. It's mostly just that the main way that it does personally, it's once you're an author and you know people and you know what they're like as people, often you can no longer read books that maybe you would have picked up as a reader not knowing anything. And that's mostly just like, I personally find it like, if I know someone's not a nice person, I find it difficult to enjoy their work. Or like when you find out things like that people didn't write their books, and that's nothing against ghostwriters, but it's a little different when you find out all the dirty secrets. But it's also just it's I also read for escape now, and that's just my reading taste changing. And I think I don't know if it's because I'm a writer. I think it's that I get so stressed out creatively writing that that's why I read so many thrillers, because I'm like, I need page turners. I need entertaining reads. And so it has negatively impacted me in the sense that I'm less likely to gravitate toward I hate using the word serious because that's so loaded, but like I'm less likely to gravitate toward like a really, other than nonfiction, because I read those like candy, like
literary.
So I've missed a lot of books I know are good because I haven't taken the time to like mold my brain space around reading some critically acclaimed, really beautifully written books, even just like denser books like fantasy. I just read way less fantasy than I used to because I'm all thrillers all the time now. And that is kind of a direct result of my writing shifting. So yes, but it is what it is. I still read a lot. Just I'm sad I've slept on a couple good books. So
I mean, I think too, even just like being a booktuber has changed stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll be honest, like there are a handful of people where interactions I've had with them, I'm like, I don't think I want to buy your next book now.
Especially because like now, if you have a bad interaction with someone, you can see them in their work. And it can just legit ruin things. So it's fascinating.
And like, that's not the kind of thing I would ever tell anybody else about. Yeah. It's just that like, it might mean that I wouldn't.
It's weird the things that impact one of our reading experiences. And
It's true. Okay. I have one other question. Weirdest or dumbest college essay you've ever read?
Okay, so I read one. It was just, I can be generic enough because I've actually read more than one like this. The ones that I personally don't like the most. Actually there was the debate essay. Anyway, I've read, there's a thing that young people tend to do, not just young people, but teenagers. I loathe weight loss essays and fitness essays. And I've read a couple of them. I read one and she had like one prom queen eventually, but it basically read like one long like eating disorder scribe. And I know that she didn't even realize it, but I'm like, I found it deeply unpleasant to read. It was basically all like, I was disgusting and fat and I just had to get fit, and look how it paid off. I was given a trophy and I was just like, oh God. I gave her gentle feedback. And I've read dudes write that too. I got benched. Like I benched and like and they're always just like all the internalized hate for themselves, but also for fat people generally. That one is a personal thing, but I always, I've gently warned students before, and I think I put it in one of my videos as well. Statistically, you could definitely get an admissions officer who's middle-aged, who's a size 12 or 14, who's just not going to like you, who's failed more than a few diets, and you make them feel really shitty about themselves. So just don't write about that. Dumb. Gosh. Oh, I've seen people on Reddit write about cheating girlfriends, like ex-girlfriends, and heartache. And that's a terrible idea. That is like flat out pretty dumb. Don't do it. Basically. It's so juvenile. And it just comes out, anything that can go negative, you never look good. It always reflects poorly on you. Even if you feel like you have some kind of upper hand in writing about it, it doesn't reflect well. Don't write about things that make you angry. That's just a general rule for life and the internet, actually.
At least until you have some perspective. Yeah. It's not bad. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think, we've been doing this for a while, and I think that's most of the questions.
I had a horrible feeling I would keep you up way too late.
No, I'm fine. I stay up late anyway. I just don't want to like keep you on for too long. Oh, we just got one more. Do you want to do like one that's final? Okay. Last question, and then we'll just send you guys off to go buy the Ivies tomorrow.
Or today. Actually, I will say selfishly, because we're just being candid on here, my Amazon rank is the best Amazon rank I've ever had thus far in my career, and I'm feeling pretty jazzed about it. So
I love it.
Yeah, no, I'm number 23 in teen and young adult thrillers and suspense. That's my best like ranking ever. And I'm in the 4,000s, which is insane. Buy the Ivies. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. Go do it. Okay.
Avery. That's it, Avery. She's fun. Regina George is fun. It's fun writing that character, that girl who loved to hate. I just love her. Yeah, giving her texture and like layers was a lot of fun. And just like thinking of her comebacks, like her like, rare. I love it.
Yep. Oh, this is really funny. We have like a couple of comments. Yes. And then somebody said, oh no.
It depends. Literally any feasible topic I can tell you not to write about could be done well, except maybe cheating exes. I don't know if that'll ever land. A fitness essay can work. It depends on how you write it. So
yeah. Cool. Well, thank you. And thanks everybody for coming and hanging out. This was fun. Go buy the Ivies. Read it. Talk about it.
Shameless self-promotion. It's like the 1 week I'm allowed to do this. So
no, dude, you should. Absolutely. New book out. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks, Alexa. We'll see you later.
Bye.